So I didn't bring my teddy, but I did bring something else with me. The film talks about how all the grown-ups in your life.
In a world where acts of kindness can seem rare, one royal moment reminds us of the purest form of humanity. Kate Middleton, known for her poised elegance, made headlines not with her fashion or royal duties, but with an unforgettable gesture of compassion. When she spotted a young girl all alone in a quiet church, Kate's response wasn't just royal, it was heartwarming. But what did she do next that left everyone in awe? You won't believe it. A serene setting with an unexpected twist. Imagine a realm where time appears to stand still, where delicate murmurs of words dissolve into soothing echoes of footsteps on cool stone flooring. This wasn't just any regular church. It was a sanctuary, a site steeped in history, with soaring arches reaching toward the sky. The flicker of candlelight danced across the marble, forming lengthy shadows that appeared to store secrets from generations past. Following a charity service, this church appeared to exhale, its tranquil ambiance spreading around everyone like a warm embrace. Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, was among the last lingering guests, having spent the afternoon engaging with community leaders and expressing her support for various causes. Dressed simply but stylishly, her presence oozed warmth, but there was something else in the air, a silence. She was standing off to the side, having a quiet talk with a local priest about the events of the day, when her gaze wandered across the room. And there, in the furthest corner, sat a small figure, nearly undetectable in the expanse of space. A young child, no more than 5 years old, her face barely visible over the pews. She gripped a faded teddy bear tightly in her arms, her gaze focused downward, nearly lost in the comfort of her soft companion. Let us take a minute to reflect on this scenario, which, while beautiful and tranquil, was far from usual. The church was far from empty, but this child sat alone. Why was this young girl alone in a location filled with prayers, tranquility, and the presence of families? Kate, ever observant, must have realized that something was wrong. Her gaze remained for a minute longer than normal, and then it happened. The maternal instinct kicked in. As much as she enjoyed being involved in the community and had worked constantly to fulfill her royal obligations, her heart was telling her that something else was going on. She excused herself from the conversation, her faint voice scarcely audible in the church's grandeur. Every step she took toward the small girl felt intentional but light, as if a soft breeze was guiding her forward. Kate's gaze scoured the room, looking for a family member, but there was no one hurrying toward the youngster. The youngster, seemingly ignorant of Kate's approach, continued to cradle her teddy bear, its fabric tattered and faded with time. Why was this small kid sitting alone in such a precious, crowded location? Was she lost, or was there something deeper going on here? The question hung in the air, unanswered, and increasing the suspense. Kate's footsteps echoed quietly as she walked across the church, each one a subtle but deliberate reminder of the gravity of the situation. The toddler hadn't spotted her yet, so Kate simply observed from a distance, waiting for the appropriate moment to intervene. It was evident that she wasn't just a princess. She was a mother who realized that sometimes a child needed more than just an adult to show up. They needed someone who actually saw them. Kate couldn't help but wonder who this little girl was and why she was alone at a place built for families and worship. The larger enigma of the problem was unfolding, and Kate Middleton was set to solve it one kind act at a time. The quiet shuffle of Kate's steps carried her even closer to the youngster, and her heart must have been racing, not out of fear, but out of genuine motherly worry for the child before her. What could she do? What will she say? The clock appeared to tick slower now, as Kate approached with silent expectancy. Why had this child found herself alone in a space so full of life but so lonely? The solution was about to be revealed, and Kate would know precisely how to respond, because her royal compassion was going to transform this tragic situation into one of optimism, a little girl's silent plea. In that large, echoing church, seeing the small girl alone in the corner was almost haunting. She sat in the darkness, curled up on herself, a little figure surrounded by the grandeur of stained glass windows and towering columns. Her delicate and vulnerable appearance seemed to draw the silence of the room to her. She wore a simple garment that had lost its vibrancy with time, virtually blending into the silent background of the sacred area. Her teddy bear, once fluffy and full of life, now appeared old, with patches of fur fading from years of cuddles. It was a source of comfort, her one companion in this seemingly interminable solitude. Her tiny fingers grasped it tightly, as if it were a lifeline, offering some comfort in an uncertain world. Her posture revealed a story of vulnerability, one that no one had cared to investigate. Her shoulders sagged slightly, and her head hung low as she glanced at the floor. The silence around her rendered her virtually invisible, but her presence in that sacred space was clear. There was tension in the way she sat, a quiet, desperate plea for someone to notice her and understand why she was there alone. Kate's eyes never left the small girl. Kate's maternal instincts kicked in as she heard conversations all around her. Something about the child's manner tugged at her heartstrings, a silent plea for attention that had gone undetected by everyone else in the room. The child's eyes, remote and removed from the warmth of the surrounding family, revealed a melancholy that words could not express. What was it about this girl that made Kate feel so compelled to act? Was it the loneliness that emanated from her diminutive stature? Was the girl's subtle but perceptible dread due to a sense of abandonment? Kate had been in the room long enough to recognize many faces, but this child's eyes were unique, empty but searching for a connection, a touch, something to shatter the silence. Kate's immediate reaction was to carry on with her royal duties, smiling, posing for photos, and interacting with the crowd, things she had done countless times before. However, when her eyes lingered on the girl, her priorities changed. How could she prolong the conversation and pose for another shot when a youngster needed her? It was as if time slowed down and the weight of the moment fell on her heart. She had met a lot of people over her regal life, but this time was different. This was not only a royal duty, this was something deeper, something only a mother would understand. In a world of cameras and spectators, this young kid was the only one who genuinely needed her attention. Kate's mind raced briefly. Could the child's family have been swept up in the frenzy of post-service conversation? Was this a simple misunderstanding? Or was there anything more going on? Kate became increasingly concerned as the seconds passed. She was caught between honoring her royal duties and responding to a mother's instinct. She was standing in a church, a place of refuge and introspection, but there was no peace for this little girl. Alone, clutching her teddy bear, her mute cries seemed to resonate louder than anything else in the room. Kate's heart squeezed. Every stride she took toward the youngster was laden with the sense that this was not a moment to be missed. She was both a mother and a royal figure. However, in this moment, her genuine strength stemmed from her empathy, her comprehension of what this girl was going through. It was not about her title. It was about being human. But as she got closer, Kate had to ask herself one question. What could she say to console this child? What words could she find to express the grief or anxiety that this small one was silently carrying? Kate Middleton steps forward with grace. Kate got up to leave the priest's talk. She did so with careful, beautiful, but hurried movements. The room had changed, and even though people were still talking, there was a new sense of calm and hope that something bigger was coming. She knew this was an important moment that no one could miss. Being in the right place at the right time wasn't enough. You had to react with empathy and the kind of kindness that only a mother could give. As Kate moved toward the little girl, time seemed to slow down around her. As she got closer to the small, shaking figure in the corner, her sneakers softly shuffled across the stone floor. Furthermore, she could feel her heart sagging with each step. She wasn't just going toward a child, she was going toward the weak spot that no one had noticed. At last, their eyes locked and the room stopped moving. When the little girl first saw Kate, her eyes twitched in surprise. Then they stopped looking at Kate. Not sympathy. Criticizing wasn't involved. In other words, it was pure sympathy, the kind of look that makes you say, "I see." Kate didn't make a big deal about her arrival. There weren't many words she said to the kid. She lowered herself to the child's level, voice soft and soothing, and eyes softening. "Hey there," Kate said in a soft voice that warmly filled the silence. "Are you okay?" The girl didn't answer at first. She looked back at her cuddly bear as if the question was too big for her to handle. In contrast, Kate did not push. After a while of quiet, she spoke again. Her voice was cool and comforting, like a wave gently slinking along the shore. "It's okay," Kate said in a strong voice. "You are not alone." The girl's small face gently tilted up again, but this time it shone with hope. Kate extended her hand, but she didn't force the girl to talk to her. Instead, she let the girl come up to her on her own time. No one was in a hurry. There was not any stress. Kate knew that the simplest words can sometimes have the biggest impact. Then the moment that made this exchange what it was came. Right away, Kate's feelings as a mother took over, and everything else seemed to disappear. Just sitting next to the girl was relaxing, like the warm church lighting. What does Kate propose to say next? What words could help this kid feel safe and heard, and bring attention to what was clearly a scary situation? Kate was there to listen to the child's story, not just comfort her. The worry stayed with me. Would the little kid open up? And would Kate's kind act start the healing process? The weight of a whispered truth. As the seconds went by in that holy place, Kate and the little girl's silence filled with words they didn't say. Even though there was a soft warmth around them, Kate's heart hurt because the air felt heavy. She had sat next to the child and calmly waited, doing nothing but being there. The girl's head was still down, and she was nervously playing with the ends of her torn teddy bear. There was silence for a moment, but then a soft, shaking voice broke it. Little girl whispered, I lost my mommy." Her voice was barely above a whisper. Kate's heart skipped a beat as the words hit the air like a storm. Although Kate felt like a mother right away, she resisted the urge to rush over and comfort the girl. There had to be room for this delicate moment to be heard. Kate had no idea what the tiny voice, which was full of weakness and pain, was telling her. The girl's eyes were heavy with sadness that no child should ever have to feel. The statement was almost imperceptible, but it was clear. The little girl wasn't just by herself in that church. She was by herself in the whole world, and her grief was so deep that it left her adrift. She felt a hole in her heart that seemed hard to fill after her mother died. Kate had found something raw and real outside of church, where the royal family met with fans and reporters. It was a loss that could not be hidden behind any veil of public life. What Kate did next wasn't just empty words to make the child feel better. It wasn't about giving the right advice or saying nice things. It had to do with empathy, real, unvarnished empathy. Kate knew that pain better than anyone else because she was a mother herself. People were too scared to think about losing their child, but this little girl had lost the most important person in her life. Even though Kate's heart hurt and felt sorry for the child, she knew she had to help them find peace, even if it was only for a moment. Thoughts from the girl filled the silence, and Kate put a light touch on her shoulder. The action was small, but it said a lot. At first, she didn't say anything. She just let the girl cry. She shed many tears, and each one felt like a weight lifted from her weak heart. Kate could feel the link getting stronger with each drop. This wasn't just a royal moment. It was a moment for all people. A mother and her child. Two souls linked by loss. Why did the little girl accept Kate so quickly when she was there? Was it the way her eyes seemed to understand? Or was it just being there with her in silence, not judging her, and not eager to make things better? No matter what it was, they were already starting to feel close to each other. As Kate gently wiped the girl's tears away, she knew that this moment would always be etched in her consciousness. But while Kate listened to the girl's story, she couldn't help but think, could this one-on-one moment really change the little girl's life? That day, Kate was kind. Could that be the sign of hope that child so badly needed? As the seconds went by in that holy place, Kate and the little girl's silence filled with words they didn't say. Even though there was a soft warmth around them, Kate's heart hurt because the air felt heavy. She had sat next to the child and calmly waited, doing nothing but being there. The girl's head was still down, and she was nervously playing with the ends of her torn teddy bear. There was silence for a moment, but then a soft, shaking voice broke it. Little girl whispered, I lost my mommy." Her voice was barely above a whisper. Kate's heart skipped a beat as the words hit the air like a storm. Although Kate felt like a mother right away, she resisted the urge to rush over and comfort the girl. There had to be room for this delicate moment to be heard. Kate had no idea what the tiny voice, which was full of weakness and pain, was telling her. The girl's eyes were heavy with sadness that no child should ever have to feel. The statement was almost imperceptible, but it was clear. The little girl wasn't just by herself in that church. She was by herself in the whole world, and her grief was so deep that it left her adrift. She felt a hole in her heart that seemed hard to fill after her mother died. Kate had found something raw and real outside of church, where the royal family met with fans and reporters. It was a loss that could not be hidden behind any veil of public life. What Kate did next wasn't just empty words to make the child feel better. It wasn't about giving the right advice or saying nice things. It had to do with empathy, real, unvarnished empathy. Kate knew that pain better than anyone else because she was a mother herself. People were too scared to think about losing their child, but this little girl had lost the most important person in her life. Even though Kate's heart hurt and felt sorry for the child, she knew she had to help them find peace, even if it was only for a moment. Thoughts from the girl filled the silence, and Kate put a light touch on her shoulder. The action was small, but it said a lot. At first, she didn't say anything. She just let the girl cry. She shed many tears, and each one felt like a weight lifted from her weak heart. Kate could feel the link getting stronger with each drop. This wasn't just a royal moment, it was a moment for all people. A mother and her child, two souls linked by loss. Why did the little girl accept Kate so quickly when she was there? Was it the way her eyes seemed to understand? Or was it just being there with her in silence, not judging her, and not eager to make things better? No matter what it was, they were already starting to feel close to each other. As Kate gently wiped the girl's tears away, she knew that this moment would always be etched in her consciousness. Kate sat with the girl and listened to her story, but she couldn't help but wonder if this one-on-one moment with the girl could really change her life. That day, Kate was kind. Could that be the sign of hope that child so badly needed? Lighting the way forward. As soon as the quiet statement was over, the mood changed. Even though she was still sad, the little girl seemed to find some comfort in the quiet time she spent with Kate. Kate knew exactly what to do to make her feel even better at that moment. She reached out and gently pulled the child's little hand toward her own. Kate's soft voice soothed the girl's hurt heart as she said, "You know, this church has a tradition. It's called setting a candle on fire. It's a prayer for someone you care about and a word of hope." The girl's eyes grew bigger and she looked directly at Kate for the first time. Her eyes were filled with a mix of uncertainty and hope. Kate didn't hear her say anything, but the small change in her stance told her everything she needed to know. She paid attention. She was all set. Kate smiled, got up, and led the girl carefully to the candle stand in the church's corner. Flames flickered and gave off a warm glow that filled the room with a soft light. They also cast soft shadows on the walls. Kate got down on her knees next to the girl and kept her hand on her shoulder. Each candle was a small, bright promise of something bigger and better. They stood together in front of the candles. Kate asked, Which one would you like to light?" The little girl stared at the candles for a moment, lost in thought, before she finally pointed to a small flame in the corner that wasn't lit. Kate smiled, took the lighter off the stand, and gave it to the girl carefully. With shaky hands, the girl picked up the match and hit it against the side of the box. It caught fire, and she carefully put it on the wick of the candle she had picked out. There seemed to be peace between the two of them in that quiet, close moment. It wasn't just lighting the candle that did it. What it meant was hidden behind it. This little girl felt like she had given her mother and herself hope. That small but important act was a promise that there would always be light, even when things were dark. Kate's eyes got softer as she watched the girl. The girl's little hands shook a little as she took a step back to look at the tiny flame. There was something so sweet about the way the girl looked at the light, like she was telling everyone a secret. At that moment, Kate realized that sometimes big actions or long talks weren't needed to heal. Sometimes, simple acts of care and connection were enough. It was a small act of kindness to light one candle, but it made them wonder how it would set the stage for the meeting. Was this the spark that would lead the girl back to her family, where she would be safe and loved? Time would tell, but that lamp stood for something much deeper at that moment. It was a sign of light in the dark and hope in a world that seemed so empty. That hope was what would get the girl through whatever came next. When kindness calls for action. As the candle flickered in the church's sacred space, Kate's heart was still heavy with the gravity of the situation. It wasn't just about comforting the girl in that moment. There was a deeper responsibility that weighed on her, ensuring this child's safety, and more importantly, finding her mother. The serene atmosphere of the church now seemed charged with a sense of urgency, though Kate's poise never faltered. She had a quiet resolve that was as natural as breathing, and her instincts as a mother were sharp. As much as she wanted to shield the little girl from any further distress, Kate knew she couldn't handle this alone. The church staff needed to be involved, and without missing a beat, Kate rose from her place beside the girl and whispered a few words to the priest nearby. The man, understanding the seriousness of the moment, immediately sprang into action. Kate discreetly moved to the side with the little girl, talking to her in soothing tones as the priest hurried to enlist help. The staff, having sensed the growing tension, swiftly began a discreet search of the premises. While some checked the surrounding church hall and its vestibules, others made calls to the community members to inquire about any missing persons. Kate's presence remained a quiet, calming force amid the unfolding flurry of action. She continued to hold the child close, her words soft and gentle, as she kept her engaged with small talk about the candles and their meanings, allowing her mind to stay distracted from the uncertainty. The little girl, her wide eyes still glazed with confusion, clung to Kate. Yet, as the minutes passed, there was an unspoken trust that formed between them. Kate's soft words about family, light, and even the playful flicker of the candles began to comfort her, slowly easing the tension in the child's frail shoulders. But even though the girl was distracted, Kate's mind never left the task at hand. Her royal composure was never more evident than in moments like this, when the action had to speak louder than words. The community surrounding them, unseen by the girl, was mobilizing quietly, a web of care that spread out to ensure her safety. And all this, Kate managed with grace, without ever breaking her calm facade. Was it simply the kindness of the community coming together, or was there something deeper at play? Was it Kate's presence alone that seemed to pull everyone into action? What made this seemingly small situation unfold into such a powerful, collective effort? The truth is, this was not just a random act of kindness. Kate, by her very nature, had the ability to inspire the people around her to act. She was the thread that wove everything together, from the concerned staff to the patient community members, all united in a single mission. Their collective energy was like a beacon of hope, pushing past the unknowns and fears that often surface in moments like these. And yet, despite the calm outward appearance, There was an undercurrent of anticipation. Would they find her mother? Every passing second, every phone call, every whisper carried with it the question of whether this story would have a happy ending. But one thing was certain. Kate's composure had set the tone for everyone involved. In a world full of noise, it was the quiet action of a few that spoke the loudest. The church, though still, was alive with determination. A mother's desperate search ends. It felt like hours went by while Kate held the little girl close. Her mind was rushing, but her heartbeat was steady. Outside, the search that had now picked up speed seemed to fill the air with energy. Kate, on the other hand, stayed cool and focused on the child in her arms, reassuring them gently. She was aware of how serious things were, though. Time was running out, and she could feel the nervous wave of waiting settle around them. Could they find the girl's mom? The question that hadn't been answered hung over the tender moment that had come between them. Then, right on time, the sound of voices could be heard coming through the church doors. Kate looked quickly to the front door just as the staff ushered a woman in. The woman's eyes were wide with fear, and her face was drawn. She felt like time stopped when she saw her daughter. The mother's breath caught in her throat, and she rushed forward with her arms spread wide. In the middle of the quiet church, a mother and daughter put their arms around each other in the deepest way. It was easy to feel the mood in the room. When the little girl looked up, she saw her mother's teary face. At first, the sudden noise had scared her. After that, everything seemed to make sense again in an instant. Her small frame shook with relief as she jumped into her mother's arms. Her sobs now mixed with those of her mother. The release of fear and sadness that had been building up was so raw that it could have broken down the walls around them. Kate watched this happen, and her heart swelled with a quiet happiness. In her life, she had seen a lot of gatherings, but this one was the best. Something very basic about the way the child clung to her mother made it seem like she was trying to put together the parts of herself she had lost over time. There was no longer any fear of being left alone or any doubt about what had happened before when she was in the arms of the person who loved her the most. Kate couldn't help but feel a deep, almost personal sense of relief as she stood back and let the two have their moment. One act of kindness put an end to the child's pain and set them on the path to healing. But Kate couldn't help but wonder as she watched this tearful reunion, what had brought these two souls back together after being apart for so long? Was it fate? Was it the love that went beyond time and space? Or was it the quiet power of the church, their shared humanity, that brought them together in a time of grace and unity? They had put their bond to the test, and now that they were back together, nothing would ever feel the same. The quiet Kate in the background knew that this was a moment she would always remember. As we reflect on this touching story, one thing becomes clear. Kindness transcends status, and empathy binds us all together. Kate Middleton's act of compassion reminds us that even the smallest gestures can change lives. What would you have done in her position? Would you have shown the same level of kindness and care? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire and move the heart.